Showtime! The Capital G Show starts right now.
What's up, YouTube? Capital G here. So guys, Nationals is coming up in about 2 weeks, and one of the reasons I find myself not very enthusiastic about the event is because, I mean, it's pretty much a foregone conclusion that one of two decks will win this event, either Spellbooks or Dragon Rulers. Like, I know that Evilswarm and Mermail are both out there, and they might make top 16 or even go as far as top 8, but I think that they don't go any further than that. And I think that Dragon Rulers and Spellbooks are just on a different level right now. I think the Dragon Rulers will probably go in as like a slight favorite because I think they'll have better numbers than Prophecy. But if I'm playing Dragon Rulers right now, Prophecy is the deck that concerns me the most. You know, obviously, Evilswarm is a deck that was pretty much constructed specifically to beat your deck. But, you know, outside of Ophion, like, you don't really have anything that scares me. Prophecy, on the other hand, they can summon Kaiku, Jogan, and then back it up with Fate all turn one, and they can do that shit consistently. And that is a bitch to deal with, because even if I've got something like Blaster and I can get rid of one of your monsters, or if I can get rid of two, you know, they have Spellbook of Fate to like back up the, you know, to get rid of like a Draco sack or something like that. It's such a disruptive card. You know, chances are they'll have another Spellbook of Judgment so that they could potentially, you know, try to replicate the move next turn. It's obviously a problem. Now, what I think needs to happen for Dragon Rulers to win this event, I don't think that they can win the event playing like they did before. You know, what I'm saying is, Prophecy players have adjusted specifically to beat the Dragon Ruler matchup. That's why, you know, you see people dropping Priestess and stuff like that, and the deck basically just becoming Kaiku / Jogan beatdown. And I think that Dragon Rulers are going to have to specifically adjust more to beat Prophecy. Otherwise, I don't think they're going to win the event. You know, I know, again, that Evilswarm's out there, but it's not really that big of a deal because, you know, Prophecy just cuts through Evilswarm like a knife through hot butter. I think that so many of the Evilswarm players are going to be taken out by Prophecy players, it's not really going to become that big of an issue when you get to the higher tables. And these are just some of the notes and some of the tips that I would do if I was running the event at Nationals. And this is just stereo that I've got from looking at not just Euros, but a lot of the World Championship qualifiers and stuff like that. Number one, I would run 3 copies of Gold Sarcophagus. Like, I think that, first off, I think it's going to get hit on the ban list anyway. So I think this is probably one of your last chances to run 3 Sarcos. But, alright, so Sarco is never going to be a dead card. Like, anytime you tell me I can run a card in my deck and it's never, ever going to be dead, I probably am going to like that card a lot. Like, at worst, it's going to be a +1, like, fairly soon. Because even in a worst case scenario, you can always just use it to tutor any dragon in your deck. You know what I mean? And then later you'll get the other dragon. But most importantly, like, it gets you Heavy Storm. Now, I don't know if you guys read the finals, but game 2, where Michael or Michelle Gruner ripped a Heavy Storm and just fucking raped his opponent with spell. Like, he had everything in his back row. Dude just played Heavy Storm, and it was just like, okay, well, GG. I mean, it gets rid of the Spellbook of Fate. It gets rid of all those back row cards like the Spellbook Hall and the Grand Tower and everything that they have on the field protecting them. And then you just basically, you know, you use another card, get rid of like Kaiku, and then you just rape them. Like, if you don't OTK them, you build up so much field presence that the Spellbook player basically can't combat. But when they got, you know, Spellbook, Star Hall, and they've got like a 2800 Kaiku, I mean, what are you going to do against that? Especially backed up with a Spellbook of Fate. So I look at Sarco and I think it can get you Heavy Storm early, which is kind of like a semi-win condition against that deck. Worst case scenario, it's always going to be a +1 because you can just search another dragon card. Another thing, I would play Dark Hole. You know, I see a lot of people are bringing Dark Hole back to the main deck. I like that because it gets rid of the turn 1 problem setup that deck puts on you. You know, I know that it's not really effective against Evilswarm because they'll just use the Pandemic Virus to protect Ophion. But against Spellbooks, it's really good because if your opponent has Jogan and Kaiku, like, it just gets rid of that. You know, outside of Jogan and Kaiku, you probably don't care that much about what they have on board. You know, that is the field that you want to get rid of. If you're going first, obviously just sit and hold your Dark Hole until, you know, your opponent tries to use something to threaten you. But even if they have Spellbook of Wisdom, they're going to lose one of those monsters. So I think that Dark Hole is definitely something that needs to be mained. Now, this one is pure preference. I would main deck 1 copy of Light and Darkness Dragon and Eclipse Wyvern. I know that a lot of people completely took those cards out of the deck. You know, I think that a lot of people thought that they were too slow. But all right, first off, Eclipse Wyvern triggers easy as shit in this deck. You know, all you have to do to trigger it, I mean, you can just discard it for one of the babies. It's going to hit the graveyard. It's instantly going to trigger. And then you can just banish it to summon any E-Dragon, and then it'll trigger again. You can pull a lad from your deck. If you've already used your lad, you can pull, you know, the other dragons or whatever. And I just feel like Light and Darkness Dragon is still a fantastic card against Prophecy. It's still a fantastic card in the mirror match. I think that everybody became so scared of having their Light and Darkness get run over by High Priestess that they took it out the deck. But I mean, those are just the odds you got to live with in Yu-Gi-Oh! I mean, you probably, even if you're running 3 High Priestess, that's 3 cards out of 40. You know, if you're going first, you probably won't have the High Priestess in your hand. So I can live with that, because if I drop Lad on you turn 1, you know, and you're playing Spellbooks, you're just going to be in a shitty position if you don't have High Priestess. Like, okay, that is your one out, and I can live with that. But outside of her, you know, you're probably going to just lose to that one card. And then even if you somehow get my lad off the board, you know, I get to summon a really big dragon back to the field if you don't like Spellbook of Fate, banish it or something like that. And then my last key tip basically is don't play any traps. I don't play a single trap in this deck. Like, if it's a purple card, don't run it. And I say that because, you know, Breakthrough Skill was something that, you know, we all fell in love with, but right now that shit is just too slow. You know, against Prophecy, or excuse me, against Spellbooks, if you're playing that, like, it is so god awful against that deck, because if you set the card in your back row and you don't, I mean, they know that it's gonna be Breakthrough Skill number 1. And all they're going to do is they're going to use Spellbook of Fate, and they're either going to bounce it back to your hand or they're going to banish it, and then you won't even get to use it on your turn to turn off the Jogan or turn off the Kaiku or something like that. Actually, you wouldn't be able to banish it anyway because Kaiku doesn't let you banish it. So, like, it's completely dead against that deck. You know, even against Evilswarm, it's like if they get the pandemic virus, it's dead against that deck too. So, you know, I personally would rather play quick play tech cards, something like Forbidden Chalice, where I can be, you know, proactive. I can use it on my turn. I can use it to turn Kaiku off. I can use it to turn Jogan off. You know, another good quick play card that I like is Book of Eclipse. And Book of Eclipse it acts very similar to Dark Hole, where it takes out the Kaiku and the Jogan. Like, if your opponent has both of those cards face up on you, you use Book of Eclipse, you turn them both face down, and then, you know, you probably should be able to kill both of them during that turn. You know, I don't really think that traps are necessary in this deck. Making your opponent's Heavy Storm dead is always good. I know that like 5 people out there, including Robbie and Desan Enigma, are still playing MST for some fucking reason. Making those cards dead is good, so I don't feel like traps are necessary. Just side the traps, you know? Let me know what you guys think. Thank you for watching, and take care. Subscribing makes life happy.